Welcome to Horse Sense, where every hoofbeat carries a story, and every flick of the tail hides a meaning. Here, we explore the wisdom, wonder, and history of horses. One tale, one fact, one moment at a time. Whether you're a lifelong rider, a curious mind, or just someone who loves the beauty of these majestic animals, you're in the right place, so saddle up, and let's discover what horses have been trying to tell us all along. When you look out at the world, your eyes give you a certain shape of reality. Straight lines, crisp corners, depth, color. It all seems immediate and obvious. But for a horse, the visual experience is not so straightforward. To begin understanding how horses see the world, we have to start with the shape of their eyes and where those eyes sit. Unlike humans, whose eyes are set on the front of the face for binocular vision, horses have eyes on the sides of their head. This gives them nearly 350 degrees of vision. Imagine standing still and being able to see the entire world around you, front, side, and even a good portion behind. That's how a horse sees. But there's a trade-off. The panoramic field of view comes at the cost of depth perception and clarity in the center. Where humans use both eyes to focus on a single point and judge distance, horses rely more on movement, shadow, and instinct. They have two blind spots, directly in front of their forehead and directly behind their tail. These are the only places they cannot see, and they matter greatly. Approaching a horse from directly behind or suddenly appearing in front of them can startle them, not because they are nervous creatures, but because you appear out of nowhere, literally. Now consider this. When a horse lifts its head high, it's often trying to use its monocular vision to survey its surroundings. But when it drops its head low or tilts it slightly, it may be attempting to gain binocular focus, the only way it can see with depth. What this means is that the very way a horse holds its head isn't just about posture. It's about perspective. Quite literally, horses have to move their heads to make sense of their world. And while we walk through life with our eyes naturally adjusting and focusing, horses experience constant shifts in clarity. They see better at a distance than up close. Their close-up vision is limited. That's why a sudden object on the ground, like a crumpled bag or a snake-shaped hose, can trigger hesitation or fear. They're not trying to be difficult. They're trying to figure out what just appeared in their slightly blurry near field. So the next time you walk beside a horse, take a moment to realize their reality looks nothing like yours. Their vision is wide, alert, and cautious. But it's also beautiful, tailored by evolution for survival, for motion, and for connection. To understand how a horse sees the world is to begin shedding your own frame of reference. It's to see not with control, but with curiosity. And when you look at a field of wildflowers, a sunset, or a vibrant stable blanket, your eyes capture a rich world of color. But when a horse looks at that same scene, it sees something very different. Not worse, not duller, just different. Horses don't see the full spectrum of color that we do. They are what scientists call dichromatic, meaning they have two types of color-detecting cells in their eyes, cones, compared to the three that most humans have. This means horses are most sensitive to blues and greens, but cannot distinguish red from green the way we do. To a horse, a red apple may appear more like a shade of brown or gray-green. A bright red stable door might blend in with the surrounding barn wood. And those colorful jumps you carefully set up in the arena, a horse may see them in dull, muted shades. This doesn't mean they're unaware. It just means their visual reality is shaped by contrasts, movement, and brightness, rather than vivid hues. But while their color range is limited, horses make up for it with an extraordinary sensitivity to light and motion. Their eyes have a high concentration of rod cells, which are responsible for detecting motion and low light. This makes horses far better than humans at seeing in dim conditions, at dusk, dawn, or even under moonlight. It's one of the many adaptations they evolved as prey animals, needing to detect danger long before it arrives. That rustle in the bushes, that flicker of movement at the edge of a field, you might not even register it, but your horse does. And it may spook, react, or pause, not out of fear, but out of a biological need to process and survive. This movement sensitivity is so finely tuned that horses can detect the flick of an ear from across a pasture. It's part of how they communicate, how they keep tabs on one another, and how they stay safe in unpredictable environments. And while their color vision may be more limited, they're highly attuned to brightness contrasts. A shadow on the ground, a puddle reflecting the sky, a patch of dark earth on a light trail. These things can appear more like holes or obstacles to a horse, especially if they change suddenly. To the human eye, it's just a spot on the floor. But to a horse, it might as well be a cliff edge until proven otherwise. So when your horse hesitates at a new patch of dirt or snorts at a strangely lit doorway, it's not difficult. It's navigating a world shaped by contrast, shape, motion, and survival. A world where light and dark mean more than color. Where safety is not just about what you see, but how quickly you can interpret what moves. And when we begin to understand that, we can lead with more patience, more trust, and more awe for the quiet brilliance behind those deep, watchful eyes. To understand a horse's mind, we must first understand how a horse sees. Not just what colors they recognize or how clearly they focus, but how their entire world is arranged before them and behind them. Start with this simple truth. The position of a horse's eyes shapes its entire reality. Unlike humans, whose eyes are set at the front of the face for binocular focus, horses have eyes on the sides of their heads. This one difference gives them a nearly panoramic field of vision, almost 350 degrees. Imagine being able to see both behind and beside yourself without moving your head. That's what a horse can do. They can see nearly everything. Everything except two important spots, directly in front of their nose and directly behind their tail. These are their blind spots, and they're small but important. When you suddenly appear in one of those zones, walking up behind them without warning, or waving your hand in front of their muzzle where they can't quite focus, the horse may startle or pull away. Not because it's nervous, but because it quite literally didn't see you coming. Now consider the implications of this field of vision on trust. Horses live in a world where most of what they see is moving, shifting, and potentially dangerous. Their peripheral vision is broad, but it's also more distorted. Things seen from the sides are less sharp, more likely to appear as shadows or flickers of motion. To really understand something, to judge its depth, to assess its safety, a horse needs to turn its head and bring it into binocular focus with both eyes. That's why your horse might seem cautious when approaching a new object. Why it might turn its head, tilt it sideways, then slowly circle just to see clearly. In the human world, that's curiosity. In the horse's world, it's self-preservation. And that front blind spot, it explains why horses sometimes bump into things when they're led too closely, or why they might hesitate before a jump if their line of sight is momentarily interrupted. Right before takeoff, they lose sight of the base of the obstacle. They must trust their training, muscle memory, and you, and the rear blind spot. It's why approaching from behind is never wise without a voice or sound. You might be invisible back there, and a surprised horse is a reactive horse, even the gentlest ones. Understanding blind spots teaches us humility. It reminds us to speak softly, move with intention, and never assume a horse sees what we do. It asks us to be present in their world, not just ours. Because in the horse's view of things, perception is life. And trust is built not just by how we act, but by how we enter their vision. What does a horse really see when it looks at you? Not just your shape. Not just the clothes you wear or the way your hair moves in the wind, but something deeper, something more instinctive, more telling. A truth you might not even realize you're projecting. Because horses don't just see with their eyes, they read. They read your posture, your energy, your emotion. They notice whether your shoulders are soft or stiff, whether your breath is slow or sharp, whether your eyes dart around or hold a steady gaze. They know the difference between a person who walks with intention and a person who carries anxiety in their steps. And they react, instinctively, instantly. To a horse, your body language is louder than your voice. Your presence speaks before your words ever do. If you approach a horse with nervous energy, even if you're smiling, they'll feel it. If you try to mask anger or fear or impatience behind a gentle tone, they'll sense the dissonance. Horses are prey animals. They've evolved for millions of years to detect the subtlest shift in energy, the tiniest change in the environment, including your emotional state. Some call this intuition, others call it survival. But no matter the name, the result is the same. When a horse looks at you, they're seeing the truth. They don't care about your title, your job, your bank account, or your status. They care about your clarity, your calm, your intention. A horse responds best to someone who is grounded, someone whose movements are consistent, whose breath is steady, whose energy doesn't spike unpredictably. It's not about being dominant, it's about being centered. This is why horses are used in therapy, not because they understand human words, but because they reflect human truth. They mirror what you bring into space. If you're anxious, they grow tense. If you're peaceful, they soften. When a horse lets you touch them, walk beside them, or ride with them, they're not just allowing a human on their back. They're accepting your energy into their body's rhythm. They're syncing with your breath, your heartbeat, your internal world. This is sacred. This is rare. And when you enter a paddock or pasture, remember, you are already speaking, even if you say nothing at all. So the next time a horse looks into your eyes, ask yourself, what am I really saying with my presence? Because to a horse, vision goes far beyond sight. To understand how a horse navigates the world, you must first understand how they perceive it. Unlike humans, horses don't rely heavily on fine detail or vibrant color. They are not creatures of sharp edges and bright screens. Instead, they are creatures of movement, contrast, and subtle shifts in light. And it all starts with the design of their eye. A horse's eye is one of the largest of any land mammal. It's shaped horizontally, giving them a wide panoramic view. They see nearly 350 degrees around their body, almost a full circle, with just a small blind spot directly behind their tail and directly in front of their nose. Their world is a sweeping landscape of movement, constantly updated by even the tiniest flicker on the horizon. But that panoramic gift comes with trade-offs. Horses have limited depth perception, especially when approaching something head-on. That's why a shadow on the ground, a puddle of water, or a beam of light cutting across the path can become a source of hesitation, even fear. To us, a puddle is just a puddle. But to a horse, it might be a hole, or a trap, or something else entirely. Until they've had a chance to stop, tilt their head, and shift their view, they simply don't know. What we call spooking is often nothing more than checking, a moment of instinctual doubt in a world painted with uncertainty. Light and shadow affect horses far more than we realize. Imagine walking through a barn. To you, the contrast between sunlight pouring through a doorway and the dim stall behind it is simple. To a horse, that brightness creates visual distortion. Their eyes take longer to adjust to changes in lighting than ours do. That's why a horse may hesitate to walk into a trailer or out of a dark barn into the sun. It's not disobedience, it's biology. And motion, above all, is their language. Even the smallest flutter of a leaf, a bird shifting on a fence post, a tail flick far across a field, a horse notices. While humans lock eyes to connect, horses lock onto movement. In fact, their motion sensitivity is so advanced. They can detect a slight shift in posture from dozens of feet away. This is why body language works so well in training. and why inconsistency can be so confusing. If your hand lifts a lead rope with tension one day and calmness the next, the horse doesn't just notice the difference. They react to it, instantly. To a horse, a still figure can mean safety or danger. A moving object could be play or predator. Their survival has always depended on noticing first, questioning later. And so, they live in a world where every shadow tells a story and every movement matters. They don't see in words. They see in waves of light, flickers of motion, and shifting contrasts of shadow and stillness. Their world isn't built on clarity. It's built on possibility. And when you walk with them, ride with them, or simply stand beside them, it helps to remember. You're sharing a world that looks very different through their eyes. Not less intelligent, not less emotional, just different. When the sun sets and shadows stretch into darkness, the human world dims into uncertainty. But for horses, the night tells a different story. Because horses, unlike us, do not rely on artificial light to feel safe. They evolved in open plains where dusk was not the end of the day but a transition. Their eyes, their instincts, their entire physiology adapted to function in fading light. To sense, to survive, to see when we cannot. A horse's night vision is extraordinary. Inside the anatomy of their eye lies something we don't have. The tapetum lucidum, a reflective layer behind the retina that bounces light back through the photoreceptors, giving them a second chance to process it. This same layer is what makes a horse's eyes glow when caught in headlights at night. It's not magic, it's biology tuned for survival. While horses may not see in total darkness, they require far less light than humans to make out their surroundings. Where we see black, they see form. Where we stumble, they navigate with confidence. Their eyes gather ambient light, moonlight, starlight, the faint shimmer of a distant barn window, and translate it into meaning. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. At night, they rely on memory, motion, and emotion. They remember where that low branch was last time. They sense the tension or calm of their herd mates. They move with an awareness that blends sight, instinct, and an internal map of their world. And so, in the stillness of night, you might see a herd grazing peacefully, tails flicking, hooves shifting gently in the grass. They are not afraid of the dark. It's a language they understand. This is also why many horses become more alert or more reactive after sundown. Their heightened senses can detect what we cannot. A rustle in the grass, the scent of a predator on the wind, the low hum of distant thunder. What seems peaceful to us may feel charged to them. For humans, darkness often means isolation. But for horses, it can mean intimacy. Quiet. The collective heartbeat of the herd standing side by side under a sky of stars. There are stories from stables across the world of horses that stand vigil at night, guarding a foal, staying close to an aging friend, or simply waiting by the gate for someone they love to return. Their vision helps them see, but it's their emotional awareness that guides their choices. So the next time you walk into a pasture at dusk or hear a soft nicker in the dark, know this: the horse does not fear the night. They know it, they see it. And in many ways, they see you better in the dark than you could ever see yourself. The pasture is quiet. A horse lies curled in the grass, eyes gently closed, legs twitching ever so slightly. The chest rises and falls in a steady rhythm. And if you look closely, you might see the eyelids flutter, the ears flick without sound. Something is happening in the stillness. Something mysterious. Something beautifully human. This horse is dreaming. Yes, science confirms what caretakers have long suspected. Horses, like humans, enter stages of sleep that include REM, rapid eye movement, where dreams are most likely to occur. But unlike humans, horses can only reach REM sleep when they lie down and feel truly safe. A standing horse dozes. A resting horse trusts. And it is in that sacred moment, when the weight of the body lets go and the head lowers to earth, that the mind begins to wander. But what does a horse dream of? Do they see endless pastures? Do they run with the herd of memory? Do they hear your voice echoing in the silence of sleep? No one knows exactly what images flicker through the equine brain during dreams, but researchers have studied the sleeping patterns of horses using EEG technology. The results are compelling. Brainwave activity during horse REM sleep closely resembles that of dreaming mammals, including humans and dogs. And just like humans, horses may whinny softly, move their limbs, twitch their lips, or breathe irregularly during dream states. These are not random. They are rehearsals, replays, stories written in the language of memory and instinct. It's been suggested that horses may dream to process emotions, solidify social bonds, and replay familiar routines, just as we do. A foal may dream of its mother's nuzzle. An older horse may revisit a gallop through the fields. A therapy horse may relive the quiet stillness of standing beside a child in need. They don't dream in words, they dream in their senses. Touch, sound, feeling. And that tells us something profound about how horses view the world, not just when they're awake, but when they're vulnerable. Because to dream, a horse must first feel safe. Not just safe from danger, but emotionally secure. They must trust their environment, their herd, their human, the ground beneath them, the sky above them. Everything must signal peace before the mind can drift inward. That's why horses who feel abandoned, unsafe, or unsettled often resist lying down at all. And without REM sleep, they can suffer, not just physically, but psychologically. Fatigue, anxiety, even behavioral shifts can result from dream deprivation. Because dreaming isn't indulgence, it's essential processing. And maybe, just maybe, the horse who lowers themselves beside you, curls gently into the straw or grass, closes their eyes and lets go. Maybe that horse is dreaming of you, of the gentle brush of your hand, of the rhythm of your voice, of the trust you've built slowly over time. Because in their dreams, pure and wordless, they return to the things that made them feel most whole. So the next time you see your horse lie down, don't disturb the moment. Let them wander. Let them remember. Let them float. And know this, behind those fluttering lids lies not just sleep, but story. Not all sight comes from the eyes. Some of the most profound perception lives beneath the surface, in the skin, in the hairs, in the barely noticed tremors of the body that sense and respond before thought ever arrives. Horses understand this better than we do, because horses don't just see the world through vision, they see it through touch. Their skin is a vast and sensitive landscape. Beneath that smooth coat lies a world of receptors, millions of nerve endings designed to pick up the subtlest shifts in temperature, air pressure, vibration, and contact. These receptors turn their entire body into a canvas for communication. To a horse, your presence is not only visible, it's felt. The way the wind moves around your body, the tension in your shoulders, the tremble in your fingertips when you brush their neck, the steadiness or shakiness of your breath when you approach. These things speak volumes. The whiskers on a horse's muzzle, called vibrissae, are not just decorative. They are tools, extensions of awareness. Each whisker is wired to nerves that help a horse navigate space, explore unfamiliar objects, and even detect the emotional tone of a human nearby. They're the feelers of their emotional world. This is why some horses hesitate when their whiskers are trimmed. It's not vanity, it's disorientation. You've removed one of their sensory antennas, like dimming a light they've always relied on to see in the dark. And their entire skin, especially areas like the withers, flank, and face, is finely tuned to recognize gentle strokes, pressure, and intention. Horses can tell the difference between a loving hand and an anxious one, between a guiding nudge and a nervous poke. Your touch is not neutral, it speaks, and so does theirs. When a horse leans into your shoulder, noses your arm, or rests their chin on your back, it's not random affection. It's a sensory expression. It's their way of reading you and offering something in return, a kind of physical empathy that bypasses language. Even hoofbeats carry information. When a bonded horse feels their friend steps through the earth, they can recognize them. They feel rhythm before sound, vibration before vision. It's an ancient language, rooted in safety, connection, and shared ground. Touch is also how they soothe one another. In the wild and in herds, horses stand close. They graze side by side, often in physical contact. They rest their heads on each other. They groom, not for cleanliness, but for comfort. Their bond is built not just on sight or scent, but on the felt presence of the other. So what does this mean for how horses see the world? It means their perception is not confined to their field of view. It expands outward through their body. They're constantly feeling the environment, reading textures, tension, air, movement, and emotion in a way we've largely forgotten. It means that your energy, your intent, your presence, it's not just seen, it's registered. And when you touch a horse with gentleness, presence, and respect, you're speaking in one of the oldest languages of trust. Because to a horse, a mindful touch is not just contact. It's a clarity, it's recognition. And in that silent exchange, no words, no noise, something ancient awakens. You begin to see the world, not just through your eyes, but through theirs. In a world obsessed with speed and noise, it's easy to miss the wisdom of stillness. But horses don't. In fact, stillness is where they thrive. To truly understand how horses see the world, you must understand this. A horse notices what you overlook, not because they are smarter or simpler, but because they are still present. They are not distracted by clocks, screens, or deadlines. They are tuned to a different rhythm, one rooted in nature, instinct, and survival. Stillness, for a horse, isn't the absence of action. It's the height of awareness. Stand quietly beside a grazing horse, and you may think they are focused only on grass. But their ears are swiveling. Their skin is twitching. Their nose is sniffing the air. They're feeling the vibration of a vehicle a half-mile away. They're sensing the approach of a hawk overhead. They're noting the shift in your breathing when you step closer, all without moving an inch. Stillness is not inactivity, it is attunement. When a horse freezes with one front foot slightly raised and ears forward, they're not scared, they're scanning, listening, waiting, making sense of what their body is telling them. It's a language most humans have forgotten, the patience to notice. And when you enter a horse's space with busy energy, you'll feel the difference. They may step back, shift weight, or raise their head. Not because they're spooked, but because you disrupted the balance. You brought noise into their stillness. But approach with calm, with breath, with quiet hands and clear intent, and you'll find yourself welcomed, matched, mirrored, because horses don't just observe you, they absorb you. Stillness is their lens. It's how they notice the blink of an eye in another horse 50 feet away. It's how they sense a thunderstorm before the clouds break. It's how they anticipate your next move before you make it. And it's how they read you. If your body says calm but your breath says fear, they will know. If your hands are soft but your mind is spinning, they will feel it. If you stand beside them in true peace, they will rest. It's why horses are used in trauma therapy, because they reflect stillness. They demand it. And when you finally match their rhythm, slow, steady, attuned, you don't just train a horse. You meet them. You learn to see with more than your eyes. You learn to listen without words. You learn to stand without needing to act. And in that space, you begin to remember something ancient. That awareness does not require speed. That connection lives in silence. That stillness is not emptiness. It's where everything important arrives. You can fake a smile. You can fake calm words, fake confidence, fake that everything is fine, but not with a horse. Because horses see something most people don't. Something we can't even put into words. They see feeling, not with their eyes exactly. Not like you'd see a color or a shape. They sense it, read it, like heat rising from pavement or wind bending a blade of grass. Horses are emotional thermometers, reading the invisible atmosphere of your soul. They don't care what you say. They care how you say it. They listen for the pauses between your breaths, the slight tension in your hands, the way your shoulders rise a fraction when you think no one notices. They read the tone behind your words. They smell the adrenaline you try to hide. They feel the energy radiating from your core even before you do. To a horse, your emotional state is not private. It's a broadcast. They know when you're pretending. They know when you're pushing past your limits. And they know when you're showing up as your real, raw self. It's why anxious riders make anxious horses. It's why grieving people often find comfort in the quiet presence of a horse, not because the horse knows grief in the human sense, but because they respond to it without judgment, without words, without needing you to explain. They offer you stillness when you can't find your own. And when a horse mirrors your fear, it's not rejection, it's honesty. They are showing you what lives inside you, the tightness, the doubt, the shakiness you hoped no one could see. They reflect it not to shame you, but to invite you into awareness, to help you regulate, to bring you back into truth. And when you soften, they soften. When you exhale, when you stand in quiet vulnerability, no agenda, no defense, they connect. Because to a horse, authenticity is safety. It doesn't matter if you're happy or sad, confident or scared. What matters is that you're real. That's how they recognize you. That's how they trust you. And that's how, without words, they teach us to see the invisible not only in them, but in ourselves. When we think of sight, we usually imagine brightness, the middle of the day, sunlight, clarity. But for a horse, some of the most crucial parts of their vision come to life when the world dims. Horses are crepuscular by nature. That means they're most active at dawn and dusk, those strange, quiet hours when light and shadow blur. And because of this, their eyes evolve to see in ways we don't, especially when the sun is low or barely there. Their pupils, shaped like wide horizontal ovals, stretch to gather more light, much more than human eyes ever could. Their retinas are lined with a layer called the tapetum lucidum, a mirror-like surface that reflects light back through the retina, giving them a second chance to catch what we would miss in the dark. This is why a horse can detect movement in near total darkness. But what's even more fascinating is this: horses don't see dusk as a limitation. They see it as a window, a moment where the world softens, where predators once lurked and where awareness matters most. At dusk, horses become more alert, more attuned, more alive. And yet they are calm in it too. It's the hour of both caution and comfort. For them, the changing light is not something to fear, it's something to feel. A signal to gather, to graze, to stay close. They don't need a clock. Their vision responds to the world itself, to the angles of the sun, the texture of shadows, the colors that fade from warm to gray. To a horse, time isn't hours and minutes. It's light. It's the golden glow before night, the silver blue just before dawn. And while we check our watches or phones, they listen to what the earth shows them. To see time as a feeling, to move with it instead of against it. This is the horse's way. And it's a way we might learn from if only we let the light guide us home. To a horse, vision isn't just a passive sense, it's a language. A horse doesn't rely on words, but on movement, posture, and stillness. Their eyes are how they read the world and how they are read in return. Unlike humans, horses don't need prolonged eye contact to connect. In fact, direct stares can feel threatening to them. Instead, they communicate through peripheral glances, soft blinks, shifts of the head, subtle cues that say, "I see you, I hear you, I feel you near," a flick of the ear, a step forward, a pause before a breath. When horses look at each other and at us, they're not just observing, they're speaking. Their vision is wide not only to detect threats, but also to interpret social signals: who's approaching, who's turned away, who's grazing nearby but alert. In a herd, These micro-movements are a form of silent conversation. A glance can mean comfort. A turned head can mean space. A lowered eye can mean trust. When a horse chooses to look at you with a soft eye, it's an invitation. When they glance and then step closer, it's curiosity. When they stand beside you, quietly aligned, it's a declaration, you're safe here. So am I. We miss this often, because we talk too much, move too fast, fill silences with sound. But horses live in the language of the unsaid. And sight, their way of seeing, is their way of being. This is why groundwork matters, why liberty training can feel like dance, why even walking in the pasture can become a moment of connection if you match their rhythm, their stillness, their awareness. Because when a horse watches you, they're not judging, they're sensing. They're asking, are you calm? Are you clear? Are you with me, not just near me? And if your answer is yes, not through words, but through presence, they see that. They always do. This is the language of movement, not learned in books, but in stillness, in patience, in presence. If you've ever ridden or led a horse who suddenly spooked at what looked like nothing, you've likely felt confusion, maybe even frustration. It was something you didn't see or something they saw differently. Horses are prey animals, and their eyes are finely tuned to notice movement, especially sudden movement, especially in their peripheral vision. Even a leaf fluttering, a shadow shifting, or a bird flying off can trigger a strong response. It's not because they're overreacting. It's because they're wired to survive. A horse's survival depends on noticing the first hint of danger, not the danger itself. Their wide-angle vision gives them the gift and the burden of constant input. Their minds must decide instantly. Is this safe? Is this new? Is this worth fleeing? And unlike humans who can override fear with logic, horses act first. They don't have the luxury of reflection at the moment. Their instinct is to run, then decide if they were right. Their eyes don't capture a seamless 360-degree panorama. There are gaps. And in those gaps, the imagination or instinct fills in the rest. This is also why familiar things in unfamiliar places often frighten them. A water bucket moved 2 feet to the left, a jacket draped over a fence, a jump standard fallen sideways. It's not about logic, it's about pattern disruption. Horses thrive on consistency, and when the visual world doesn't match expectation, the nervous system lights up. Some horses are more reactive than others. Breed, upbringing, past trauma, and even diet play a role. But vision is at the heart of nearly every startle. That's why desensitization is a tool used in training, not to dull the horse's senses, but to rebuild their trust in their ability to interpret the world calmly. We're not asking them to stop seeing the world. We're asking them to believe it's not always dangerous. Fear, in horses, is often a product of sight without context, a shadow without source, a shape without explanation. And trust is what fills in the gaps. When a horse learns that your presence brings clarity, that your calm is contagious, their vision begins to pair with emotional safety. They still see everything, but they no longer fear everything, because now they have you, and that changes everything. Look into a horse's eyes and you might feel something staring back, not just recognition, but something deeper, something knowing, intuitive, quietly aware. But is this just a feeling, or is there science behind it? Recent studies confirm what horse people have long suspected. Horses can read the human face, and not just in a vague, instinctual way. Horses recognize expressions. They differentiate between happy, angry, sad, or relaxed facial cues. They even remember emotional expressions they've seen before and adjust their behavior accordingly. Let that sink in. A horse can remember that yesterday you looked frustrated, and today they may approach you with more caution. Not because of punishment, but because of emotion. How do they do it? Part of the answer lies in visual cues. Horses are excellent observers of body language, facial tension, eye movement, and posture. Your eyes, your mouth, your shoulders, they all speak volumes without sound. To a horse, your face is a map. Your emotions are readable. But there's more. In an experiment conducted in the UK, horses were shown photographs of human faces with different emotional expressions. When shown a photo of an angry person, their heart rate increased and they turned their head to look with their left eye, the eye linked to the right hemisphere of the brain, which processes threats and negative emotions. When shown a smiling face, horses remained calm, curious, and engaged. In short, they felt your energy, even in a picture. In real-life interactions, this ability becomes even more powerful. Horses don't just see your face, they feel it through your energy, your breathing, your tension, your intention. It's a full-body communication channel, and the eyes are only part of it. So the next time you approach a horse, remember, they're reading you before you speak. They're sensing before you act. They're watching not just what you do, but how you feel. This isn't mystical, it's mutual awareness, it's trust. It's the silent agreement between species that says, I see you, I feel you. And if you offer honesty, not forced smiles or masked tension, but real presence, your horse will meet you with their own kind of honesty. No judgment, just reflection. They see your face, they feel your soul, and they remember the way both made them feel. Have you ever seen a horse spook at something behind them, even though it seemed impossible they could have seen it? That's not magic. That's peripheral vision, one of the most astonishing and misunderstood aspects of how horses see the world. A horse's eyes are placed on the sides of their head, not the front. This gives them a visual field of approximately 340. For comparison, humans have a visual field of about 180 degrees, and only a fraction of that is in sharp focus. In practical terms, this means a horse can see almost everything around them, the sides, above, even part of what's behind. They only have two small blind spots, directly behind the tail and directly in front of the forehead, roughly the width of their own body. This wide-angle vision is a survival superpower. In the wild, a horse needed to detect predators approaching from any angle. This panoramic awareness helped them stay alive, and still does. But it comes with challenges. Because so much of their world is seen in the periphery, horses are constantly filtering information that is blurred, moving, and often unclear. The edges of their vision aren't crisp. Objects there can appear larger, closer, or more sudden than they are. So when a plastic bag flutters by, a bird takes off behind the trees, a shadow shifts at the corner of their eye, your horse might jump, flinch, or bolt. They aren't being silly. Their peripheral system just did its job, alerting them that something changed. Imagine living in a world where you see everything, but with less detail. Imagine trying to focus on connection and communication when your instincts are constantly monitoring motion at the edges. That's what horses live with, a constant balancing act between vigilance and trust. But here's the beautiful part. Over time, with calm handling, safe environments, and positive experiences, horses learn which movements to ignore and who they can trust to guide them. That's where you come in. A horse that trusts you will begin to let their guard down. They'll focus less on the edges and more on your presence. Your voice, your body language, you become their center in a world of distractions. So the next time your horse seems hyper-aware or reacts to something you didn't even see, don't punish their instincts. Understand them. Thank them, because that's the world they live in. And when they choose to look toward you instead of away from you, they're not just focusing their eyes. They're focusing their heart. As wide and panoramic as a horse's vision is, it's not without gaps. In fact, their visual system, despite its advantages, has two crucial blind spots that can dramatically affect their behavior, training, and safety. Let's break them down. Despite their enormous eyes, horses cannot see what's directly in front of their forehead and nose, about 3 to 4 feet in front of them. That means When you stand directly in front of a horse's face, especially under their chin or close to their nose, you're actually in their visual blind zone. They may see your feet or arms in motion, but not your facial expressions or your exact body language. This is why sudden movement near their muzzle or face can startle them. They may not realize how close you are until you touch them. It's also why young horses, in particular, may seem nervous during haltering or bridling. They literally cannot see what's coming until it's very close. The second, and perhaps more dangerous, blind spot is directly behind the horse's hindquarters. This is why approaching a horse from behind without sound or warning is risky. They cannot see you. They may hear your footsteps or feel vibration, but not register your intent or location. A frightened or surprised horse might kick reflexively, thinking a predator is near. Even the calmest, kindest horse may react if they are startled in this way. Understanding these blind spots isn't just about avoiding injury. It's about building trust. Here's how to work with their vision, not against it. Approach from the side, not the front or rear. Come at a gentle angle where your presence is visible. Speak before touching. Let your voice signal your approach, especially when walking around the back. Use consistent touch. Horses rely on tactile signals to fill in what their eyes can't register. Be gentle, but clear and confident. Watch the ears. A horse's ears are often a window into what they can't see. If they're flicking backward, they're using sound to fill in the rear blind spot. In many ways, these blind spots are more than physical, they're symbolic of how horses move through life. They rely on trust to fill in what they can't see. And when you build a bond with a horse, you become that trust. They'll let you stand in their blind spot, not because they suddenly gain the ability to see you, but because they believe in you. They feel your presence. They know you're safe. That's not just vision, that's love. Close your eyes and imagine a field at midnight. The moon is barely visible. The world is silent. To you, the shapes blur into shadow. But to the horse, the world is still alive. Because unlike us, horses are naturally equipped to see in the dark. To understand this, think back to the horse's origins. Wild horses lived on vast, open plains. Most predators hunted at dusk or during the night. To survive, horses needed to detect danger long after the sun had gone down. So evolution gave them a gift, superior night vision. While not as sharp as a cat's or owl's, a horse's night vision far surpasses ours. Here's how. More rod cells in the retina. This allows them to see shapes, movement, and contrast even in twilight and moonlight. The tapetum lucidum, a mirror for light. Ever notice how a horse's eyes glow in the dark when caught in headlights or flash? That's because they have a tapetum lucidum, a reflective layer behind the retina that acts like a mirror. It bounces light back through the eye, giving them a second chance to absorb what little light exists. It's a biological flashlight, a lens of survival. Wide pupils, sensitive vision. A horse's pupil isn't round like ours. It's a horizontal slit, wide and open. This shape is perfectly designed to scan the ground and horizon at once, absorb ambient light over a broad range, maintain clarity even in dim, moving landscapes. While horses can detect movement and outlines in the dark, their night vision isn't color-rich. In low light, everything becomes a soft, gray world of shadows and shapes. But within that world, horses are masters of interpretation. They notice a fox darting across a field when you see nothing. They detect a fence line shift long before your flashlight finds it. They remember their paddocks, their shelters, their herd mates, even in near total darkness. They're not fumbling forward. They're gliding through memory and instinct. In a world obsessed with light, clarity, and certainty, horses offer a profound lesson. Not all knowing comes from seeing clearly. Some come from presence, from trust, from the ability to stay grounded even when vision fades. And perhaps that's why, when you stand with a horse under the stars, in silence, in shadow, something inside you softens. You remember how to trust the quiet. You remember that not all vision needs eyes, and that sometimes the deepest connection happens not in daylight, but in the dark. You walk into the paddock. You haven't said a word. You haven't touched a halter or raised your hand, but your horse already knows. They know whether you're calm or agitated. They know if your smile is real or hiding something. They know if your heart is open or armored. This is not magic. This is emotional vision, the ability of horses to sense, interpret, and respond to human emotion before a single sound escapes our lips. And it may be their most powerful form of sight. When a horse locks eyes with you, it's not just looking at your shape. It's scanning your soul. Are you safe? Are you here? Are you listening? Their gaze asks and demands presence. It calls us out of distraction. It pulls us back into the moment. Because to a horse, connection only happens now, not in your thoughts, not in your plans, but in your breath, your stillness, your truth. To be more like a horse is to sense more than judge, feel more than fear, show up truthfully even when it's messy, and to allow others, human or animal, to do the same. When a horse reads your heart and stays beside you, it changes something. You start to believe you're worthy of being seen, not for what you do, but simply for who you are. To see the world through a horse's eyes is to see differently. Not just in terms of vision, though that alone is a marvel. It's to feel the subtle shifts in wind and energy, to hear the silence between sounds, to notice the motion that never makes a noise, to read intentions not by words, but by breath, weight, and stillness. Horses live in a world of sensing, a world where every flick of an ear or shadow across the pasture holds meaning. They are not distracted, they are present. And the more we understand how they see, with their eyes, their hearts, and their instincts, the better we become. Not just as horse people, but as humans. We learn patience. We learn clarity. We learn to move with purpose, to listen with our whole being, and to respect a kind of wisdom that doesn't speak in words. Because horses, in all their grace and power, are not just animals we keep or ride. They are mirrors, guides. They show us what we've forgotten and invite us to see the world again, but more softly. So the next time you look into a horse's eyes, remember, you are not just being seen, you are being understood. And if you let them, they'll show you a world far more beautiful than you ever imagined. Thank you for joining me here on Horse Sense, where every breath, hoofbeat, and flick of a tail brings us closer to the quiet wisdom horses carry. If this story stirred something in you, a memory, a thought, or simply a moment of stillness, let it stay with you. Until next time, take care and listen closely. The horses are always speaking.